You're listening to the Let's Be Real podcast. Now, here's your host, Andy Hughes.
Our guest right now is an extremely talented individual. He does just about everything possible in the music world. He's a singer, songwriter, producer, video director, and plays multiple instruments. In other words, he can pretty much do it all when it comes to the music industry. As a solo artist, he has released 2 studio albums, including multiple platinum hits. This year, he has released 2 singles with more on the way. In addition to his work as a solo artist, he has collaborated with artists such as Timbaland, Flo Rida, Keith Urban, Lifehouse, Selena Gomez, and many more. We're very excited to welcome Kevin Rudolf to the Let's Be Real podcast. Kevin, thanks for joining us. How's everything going down there in Miami?
Good. Thank you for having me. Everything is wonderful in Miami, as it usually is.
Definitely a lot of sun down there for sure. But
for
again,
sure.
Really appreciate you coming on. Kevin, I just named everything you do off the top there. You obviously have a lot of skills in the music industry. I'm interested to hear where that love started. Was it very early on in your life, or where did that passion for music come from?
Well, my mother was a singer, and we lived in New York City, and she was playing in bands, and she had her own band, and doing like the nightclub scene, type thing. And so I'd go to sound checks with her. I'd meet musicians, and she'd play records and have parties, and I probably picked up on it then, though later, by the time I started playing guitar, I didn't want to admit that was an influence on me. Where it really connected was, I think I was about 11 years old, and I was with my grandfather, and we went to a music store, and that's what we do. I'd spend weekends with my grandparents, and we'd just like go to like look at stores and do stuff you do when you're with your grandparents, and there was a music store, and I just saw this black electric guitar. It was like an off-brand, nothing crazy, not an expensive guitar, but it was just black, and like it looked amazing. And there was nothing about music that I even wanted to do with it. I didn't even, it's not like I wanted to learn scales and play and learn song. I didn't have like a list of songs that I wanted to learn. It was an energetic attraction. I just wanted to be near that instrument. I wanted to own it. I wanted to have it. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I wanted it. It was physical.
Oh, so
that's how I started. And then the funny thing is then I told my mom that I got an electric guitar, and she's like, "Really?" Yeah. I was like as if there was no influence, maybe, but that's how it started. And then my grandfather said to say, "Look, I'm not getting it for you unless you take lessons. I'm not getting you another thing. You know how it is, like when you're a kid, hey, can I have this? Can I try that? You want to try everything." But he said, "Look, you have to take lessons, like real lessons, if I'm going to get you this." So I started taking lessons, and then that's where the love for it really started. And like anything else, when as you love something, you get better at it, and then more passion, and then you get more rewards from the outside world, and then you keep going. But I kept loving it.
That's awesome. That's a really cool story. And you talked about lessons, and that's one of the things that I've really noticed about you is that I feel like you really have a drive to learn. All of those things. Some artists, maybe they master songwriting or, singing and they just kind of stop there, but you've never done that. You've always seemed to have a desire to learn more and expand what you know.
I do. I think learning is everything. It's so boring. People look at when you have success in the world and as if it's like, well, my God, how did you get there? And it's like, it's actually as great as it is for a certain period of time, the doors it opens, totally appreciative of, and it's amazing. But at the same time, it's like, I think I always want to learn more. I want to I'm like, what else? Like, I want to see how they do this. I want to learn that. I want to learn about writing or filmmaking or, whatever it may be. I think it's the growth and finding, also people in a field that you admire and want to get close. Those are the things that drive me more so than a notch on a belt.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's awesome. I mean, and you've worked with a lot of great artists over the years, and everybody, obviously you're the one that's doing a lot of the work. You control, your motivations and what you do. But is there anybody that stands out that you've collaborated with that was maybe a leader or somebody that really influenced you?
Yeah, I mean, usually it goes into two categories for me. There are the people that you just realize, like, wow, they're just kind of like doing this. They don't know really what they're doing. They're just sort of there, and whether it's a singer or whatever. And then there's other people, and they're just masters. Like Lil Wayne is a master at being Lil Wayne. Rick Ross is a master at being Rick Ross. Keith Urban, the same thing. They've sort of dug so deep into their own thing and built that identity. And it's like when you work with people like that, you're just like, oh wow, this is awesome. They're doing them. This is amazing, which is so much more fun. And those people you don't really need to work with because they just contribute, give you their part, or do their thing and give it back to you, and you move forward with it, or vice versa. Which is a lot more fun than when you feel like you're doing the heavy lifting and it's not the kind of contribution where someone's really adding value. You're sort of, fixing something, which is not fun.
Right. No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And in any business, some people get down on themselves if they don't get the results they want. Maybe they don't get the promotion that they want. Maybe they don't get the results that they want to achieve with a project. Has that ever happened to you? Has there ever been a point where maybe you thought about giving up music and looking into other things?
Of course, every day. I mean, that's the struggle with being an artist. I think you're always especially when you get a certain result at a certain time and you think every song should be that big, or as big a hit, or make as much of an impact, and then the next one doesn't, and the next one doesn't, and the next one does it, and then one does it a little bit, and then you just can't look at the scoreboard, is what I found. You have to find salvation in your craft, in your work. That has to be the joy of it. And when I have had big hit records, I'm so not focused on it, I found. Like, I'm actually like, oh, but wait till you hear this. This is like crazy. You got to hear this. This is amazing. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's on the chart, but whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's just sort of opens you up energetically, I think, within the, universe or whatever you want to call it. But when you kind of don't care, it's like the results just sort of happen by themselves, and you're just on to the next thing. You don't really care. That's how I feel about it. But of course, many times I've wanted to quit and kind of have in a lot of ways for periods of time, and then something will draw me back in. Sometimes making money can be like that, where you sort of feel like, well, I've made money and like, what the fuck am I doing this for? You know what I mean? Like, if it's something you don't want to do. But I've also learned that it's not about that anymore. It's really just about continuing on the projects that you're passionate about, as opposed to thinking I want to quit because I don't like this or I don't like them. It shouldn't be about that. You should just continually work on what excites you. And if you're doing that, then those outside things don't matter as much, I find.
So basically, yeah, you just kind of want to stay in the game, and continuation is really what it's all about.
I think it is, and not enough people talk about that because there's so much emphasis on how to make it and how to get in and how to get from here to there. But what do you do when you're there? How do you maintain it? How do you navigate that? Suddenly everyone that said no is now saying yes. Not only are they saying yes, they're offering you things, some of which are good for you and some of which are not good for you. And how do you navigate those things? Those are important questions to ask. And definitely, I've definitely learned a lot from it. Sometimes, you didn't get invited to the party, so now you're at the party and you're popular and everyone wants you there. But when do you leave the party? When do you focus on what you're doing again? Because it's so easy to just sort of ride the wave of what you've done. So again, these are all interesting. They're learning experiences, and I definitely have a better idea of how to navigate it moving forward.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's awesome. And I want to spend a little bit of time. I'm sure you get asked about this all the time, but "Let It Rock" is one of my personal favorites of all time. I remember
Thank you, man.
it in high school. Found it on MySpace, actually. You remember MySpace?
Yeah.
Good times. I remember adding it to my profile, and then my one friend was like, "Oh man, that's an awesome song." He added it to his, and it was just such a huge record. It was such an inspiration, I think, for a lot of people. I have to ask, what was the creation process like for that song?
It was basically, it started out, I was in the middle of making that In the City album, and I wasn't signed, and I was just living in this little apartment in Miami, and a friend of mine brought over a rapper. He was a New York rapper, and he said he's going to give you $1,000 for a beat. And I was like, great, because I need that now. And so I was just making like 3 beats for him, and I'm just sitting in the little room doing my thing. And one of the beats I made was the instrumental for Let It Rock. And he came back and he listened to everything, and he said, "Oh man, that's dope, that's dope. But man, I can't hear myself on the floor like that." This was obviously before that, started shifting like that, where rappers were on those kind of records. So we did another record, and he left, and then the next day I just brought it up, and I was like, man, there's just something about this. This is like, there's an energy to this. This is powerful. And what I did was I just set up my microphone, and every now and then I just thought, I don't even want to write this. Like, I want to channel this song. Like, there's something here. It's important. And so I would just go, yeah, you got it coming because I just started that flow. The second I caught that flow, I felt like I got the whole record right in that flow. I just got to figure out like what I'm saying. And so I'd write down, I'd kind of do, blah, 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 over and over and over a course of, whatever, maybe even weeks, maybe even months. I remember just thinking, I don't want my brain to interfere with this because there's a message in this. And I would write down little bits at a time, collar, but it's done. You know what I mean? I would just write pieces of it, and it just started to form. And then I remember I got the Let It Rock part, and I was like, that's what this is about. This is about not giving a but I formed this whole story. It's a biblical story. Now the son's disgraced, he who knew his father when he cursed his name, turn and chase the dollar. So those are all things that I was shocked like 6 months later when that was on in clubs in Vegas and everything like that all over the world. I'm like, how the fuck are they dancing to this? Like, this is like, but I get it. The beat, obviously I'm aware, but at the same time, and Wayne's on it, and that kind of makes it a little bit more of a party record in a way from his verse. But I was talking about like real stuff. And what happened was I had every line in the song, and I had it all recorded, and I had one hole and said, because when I arrive, I bring the fire, make you come alive. And there was that hole before Let It Rock, Let It Rock. And then I was like walking one day in the street, and I was like, man, what is that line? What is that supposed to be? And then I came to me, and it said, what the saints forgot, I must now remind you. And then it tied into this whole theme of just, sort of judgment and redemption and just, it's a lot of themes going through that record. And then I recorded it. I finished the vocals on it, and it wasn't going to be the first single at all. I wanted In the City to be the first one because I wanted to roll out with this underground, like this grimy hip hop rock record and everything. And then Slim from Cash Money said to me one day, he said, Kev, what do you think about like Let It Rock being the first single? And I was like, Slim, man, I just want to get the music out, man. Like whatever. You want to pay for that video? Let's go. Like, I'm in. Like, whatever. And he said, I think Wayne should be on that record. And Wayne was going to get on In the City for forever, and he didn't do it, or whatever happened. And then the second Slim said that, he called Wayne, and then like literally by the middle of that night, we had the verses.
Wow, that's very interesting. And I like the fact that it sounds like it, took some time. It wasn't something that what you just, had for a week. It was something that took a little bit, you kind of took your time with it. You wanted to make sure that it was 100%, the best that it could possibly be.
Yeah, that's the way I like to do it because I mean, look, music's different right now. It's in a different place. It's kind of in this, whatever, just throw it together, throw it up on SoundCloud, see what happens. You're working in volume, and I get it, and that all makes sense too. There's no one way or that's right, but I like the feeling of crafting my piece of art. Like I feel like every song is a piece of art, and I want to make it as good as it can be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I know there's from content creator standpoint, I feel like everybody's has such a focus on, let's just get something out there. You never know what's going to go viral, but I like the fact that we can do
Here's
that.
the thing that a lot of those people don't understand though is that they're working like on the offense all the time, and they're working with a certain energy, which is I'm just gonna like keep asking and keep asking, and somebody's gonna say yes. But the thing is, if you just create something that's amazing, you don't have to fucking ask anybody. They'll ask you. Your phone will ring. They will call you and go, "Where do I get this?" But you have to put in the time to create that product, whatever, if it's a song, a physical product, a piece of some kind of information. But if you have amazing shit, like it's gonna get through, no doubt,
Absolutely.
of course.
Yeah, and it kind of sells itself in a way. You don't
It
have to
does.
promote it.
Tesla doesn't advertise.
Right.
I don't
Exactly.
have a Tesla, but I'm just saying, like, no, but literally, it's true. It's true that you again, that's something that you have to believe, and you have to believe in your product enough that people will come to you. And I'm not saying don't pick up the phone, and I'm not saying don't tell anyone, but your energy when you're creating that, your energy will speak for itself. People will sense that you're up to something, and that's a different energy than people calling and hustling and selling and calling and hustling. Some people are great at that. I'm not, so I just stick with what works for me.
And it makes sense, right? I mean, if you have a great idea, you want to take some time to, see if this will work, test it, whatever it is. It could be anything really, but any idea that you have, it's really important to just take your time to make sure that it's the best product that it can possibly be. So I love the fact that you did that with all of your music. I'm sure.
Yeah.
So now we talked about Let It Rock. You recently released 2 singles, I Will Not Break and Hold Your Head High, both excellent songs, by the way.
Thank you.
In life, everyone has bad days, bad weeks, whatever it may be, but you have to keep working hard and hold your head high. Is that kind of the general theme for these songs, and maybe even most of your music? I mean, even before these songs, I feel like a lot of what you sing about kind of stems from the same concept of empowerment and rebellion, positivity, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it does. I didn't see it as much at the time. It's interesting the way I think everything is now with social media. You have such direct contact with people and fans, and just hearing what they're saying back to me, I didn't realize how much it was inspiring people, and how much it was about empowerment. To me, it was about empowerment, but it was in more of a defiant, rebellious "fuck you" way, And to them, they're like, "Oh my God, I go to the gym to that song." I'm like, "You do?" Like, it's so weird to me, but I get it. I understand it. You know what I mean? To me, I'm like, I feel like it's so dark, and yet people will come up to me and say, "Oh my God, when I graduated high school, we played that song." All right, cool, great. I mean, it's listen, it's all love, but I think it's just naturally about that. That's my inners. That's what I want to get out to the world. It is empowerment, and from Let It Rock on down through that whole album, the next album, all these singles, everything I'm doing moving forward, it's inner strength, it's empowerment, it's positivity, and the thing about it is when you're doing that, it's like it's very easy for it to be corny. That's the craziest thing. Like, you can't, we live in a world that is so deeply negative. It's crazy. It's like, I don't believe the world is actually, I think there's, it's not, don't misrepresent what I just said. But when people say something really positive, it comes off as preachy or corny, and it shouldn't. I think
Yep.
now the tides are turning where people are into, positive messages, empowerment, all that stuff. but unless it's cloaked in sort of a different, you know, I don't know, it has to be sort of presented or framed a certain way for people to get it, because otherwise it just sounds like throwing fairy dust around. And I know on some of the softer songs that I've done, the more melodic ones, I haven't gotten like the response that I wanted, because I felt, and I listened back to it, I'm like, oh, it is kind of like, it does feel a little bit like lightweight. I think the aggression needs to be in it to get the message across. But we tend also I'd say in culture, in entertainment, we tend to lean toward things that are darker, and I don't fucking care. I like happy shit, you know. I like dark shit, I like happy shit, but I don't like dark for dark's sake. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like fooling anybody just if you're trying to sound a certain way and that's not you. Funny thing about it is that a lot of the artists that I've worked with, the ones who you think are the dark ones, are really soft, and the ones who you think are like the happy, like singer-songwritery ones, they have darkness in them. You know, it's funny. I always think like people, they don't see exactly what's underneath the surface sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. And yeah, I love the messages though in all of your music. And I think music is so important because it can really establish your mood. You know, in the morning, if you're listening to a sad song or something, you know, you're listening to all that music, that could really kind of dampen your mood a little bit. But if you're listening to positive things you know, in the morning, it could really set the tone for the day, and you could have a great day. So I think it's really important. You know, music is just so important in so many ways when it comes to that kind of stuff.
I agree.
And also, in addition to that, I saw that you recently said that another single is coming out soon. What are some of the other projects that you're working on?
Well, this new single is called Do You Feel Me? We're shooting a video right now, so that's going to come out in the middle of August. And I'm excited about that because that's even going darker, harder. No, it's definitely like I feel like I just want to come out with more aggressive records right now, and that's one of them for sure. And I'm working on some other things, but my main focus is right now putting out more records, and I'm finishing a book, which is sort of a hybrid memoir novel. It kind of reads like a novel, but it's really, you know, all true. And it's about my experience in Miami and moving through Cash Money in that world, and you know, just my journey in general. So I'm finishing that, and other than that, I'm just focusing on creative projects, artists, whatever that are fun and inspiring.
That's awesome, and the book too. That's really cool. So we'll definitely really excited to check that out when that comes out. Final question, Kevin. You mentioned earlier, you know, you've gone through a lot of experiences. You've moved multiple times, different places. You've had some times where you thought about giving up. If somebody was thinking of giving up or something, what would you tell them to just stay in the game? Would it be kind of a lot more along those lines again?
Of course. I mean, it depends what you're giving up. Some people give up you know, they give up the wrong thing for the right thing. Sometimes they're going down a path that they should give up. If it keeps calling you back, though, you shouldn't give up, and you won't give up. And, you know, the biggest challenge is in everything is just continuing to keep the faith and believing in yourself and believing in it. I mean, that's the war within, is just continuing to believe and have faith and be strong. So when I think about giving up and I think of advice to give somebody, I would say sometimes just wait, because sometimes you're in, you know, really what you're responding to is your mindset in that moment, and things change, things shift. Sometimes opportunities, they do just come out of the blue, and you're just preparing yourself. And by waiting, you know, you give life the opportunity to bring you something great. And I think if you give up before that, You're saying no to what's possible and what might come and what might shift everything for you. And speaking from experience of there are those pivotal moments in life where everything is different after a certain event. Before maybe my first record came out, I hadn't had one of those moments where everything was different, and everything was different after a certain point. And I believe that everyone has those opportunities. Anyone can do this or anything they want to do. It's just really putting your mind to it and focusing on it and continuing to do it every day, because you may not see the results after 1 day or 2 days, but it's cumulative. And, if you do something for an hour for 100 days, you put in a lot of time, or a month or a year, whatever it may be. But just to continue with the process every day is what I think is important. And then also to know that when you do make it and you are on top of the world, it still doesn't change. You're still doing the same thing. There's nothing like, maybe you'll have different opportunities, you'll be doing it at a different level, but the game doesn't change. You're still doing your work. You're not sitting on unless you want to, you can sit on an island with a friggin' pina colada all day, but then 3 days of that, and that's boring.
Yeah, that's an amazing message. And I like the fact that you added there too, is that even if you do make it, there's still things ahead. You may have more challenges. Things change, the world changes. You're always going to have challenges, and you need to have that.
But it's
drive
not just that it's not just that you always have challenges, is that you start realizing after a while, like, there's nothing else for me to do. Like, this is it. Like, if I love this and this is what I do, then what else am I doing? Everyone thinks like they're going to be floating around in a cloud and a yacht and a thing, and you may have some toys and that's fun, but like, have you ever been on a yacht for more than like 6 hours? It's fucking boring.
Yeah, very, very.
Opinion. Maybe someone else.
No, that definitely makes sense. No, that's really good stuff there from you, Kevin. Just one more thing, where can everybody find you on social media to see what's coming up next?
You can find me at Kevin Rudolf on everything: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can check out kevinrudolf.com for updates, and all the information's on those.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, I just want to thank you so much again for joining us.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Amazing to talk to you, and best of luck with the new singles. Really excited to hear that.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
All right.